Why did Godzilla turn from city-bashing bad guy to defender of Japan? Godzilla was not the monster they deserved. He was the monster that they needed.
He did not show me this beforehand. Are you?
Yes.
Oh boy.
Listen, this took a while. Right.
This is a level you guys can expect from this.
That's right. That's right. In 1954, there was a mere 9 years after the atomic bombs destroyed 2 Japanese cities at the end of World War II. Godzilla hit the screen is a metaphor for the devastation Japan felt after the bombings. He was created. This big lizard guy was created by atomic testing, and he comes out of the depths and destroys these cities. By 1975, 21 years later, 16 movies later, Godzilla evolved into a different metaphor. What did he become? And what was that message? Does it still resonate with us today? And what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
I knew that's where you're going with this. I knew you were going to have a Monty Python reference in this.
No, never. In preparation for the release of the new movie Godzilla -1, we've set aside this week to examine the history of the subgenre. Today, we'll delve into the kaiju monster movies between 1954 and 1975, known as the Shōwa era of Godzilla. Grab your coffee and join us as we dig in and start our spoiler-free rating.
I don't know if we have to worry about spoilers. I mean, it's a little old.
It's not that old. yeah, it's old. It's older than I am.
Getting close to
so at least that first movie was older than I am. So what would you say? Generally all these 15, 16 movies, is this something for general audiences, or is this something that would be more for
it really does change as it goes along. I mean, it becomes more kid-friendly. At least they were trying to be more kid-friendly as this was progressing. I'd say probably sure. I'd say the subtitles would be the biggest hindrance for younger audiences.
Oh, yeah.
It is dark. Definitely the first 2 are dark. It is more sort of touching on dark topics.
I don't think we need to go over it too much in here. Pretty much everybody knows Godzilla movies. A lot of smashing, bashing of cities, a little frightening for younger viewers, but everybody else is going to pretty much laugh at the
big
at
fighting
the special effects.
Oh yeah, be ready for cheesy.
That's
cheesy,
right.
cheesy. But do you remember that this was a very long time ago, and they were working with what they got?
Yeah, you imagine sitting in theater in 1950s and watching this. But this also came out of a time when there was a lot of other monster creature feature movies coming out. You know, It Came from the Desert, The Blob, all this other kind of stuff was going on. And so what made Godzilla stand out, so to speak, other than him being very tall? And then the big question is, what are the hidden Christian themes and moral lessons in general that can be taken out of this genre, out of this era, and of city-destroying monsters? And is there anything at all that's there? I got one. It is, live in the country, people. Monsters don't destroy little farms, okay? They're focused on the cities. There you go. Okay, there you have it. You can pay me later. Also, another theme. This I'm just roiling with themes here. Another theme is make sure your life is right with God, because no insurance company covers death by kaiju. Nothing. I've looked at them all. There's no fine print or anything that covers that. No clause.
They don't have an exception for it?
No, none at all. None at all. So
definitely death and dismemberment section.
Well, yeah, that might be.
Or disintegration.
Section. Yeah. Death by fire. That might qualify. So the Shōwa era, this range from 54 to 75, was named after the emperor who reigned during this period, Emperor Shōwa, also known as Hirohito in the U.S. So during this era, there's like 3 different subcategories. You had the first 2 movies that came out, and those were like the duology.
Serious.
They were
They
like,
take themselves very seriously. Had a message, going for it. Get to it.
and there's a tone there. So in order for us to pull out a theme, we kind of have to divide this up a little bit, because we're covering so many movies, and so you have to be really general with this. But if you're going to take the first 2 movies, they have a certain theme. Then you have the next grouping, which would be considered the revival era, and then the last grouping, which would be champions, and they're just basically guys in rubber suits wrestling with each other. So, and that's really where they started the kin friendly stuff. They got Son of Godzilla and all that kind of stuff that's in there. So goofy. You know what?
Some really goofy stuff. But if you want goofy,
yeah,
okay.
If you can't laugh at it,
I'd say that some of the later ones are definitely more fun, sort of just goofiness.
But you see the change in tone.
Yeah.
The first ones being this metaphor of the atomic bombs. And from what I understand, in Japan, they were occupied after the war, and probably for a good reason. They were occupied by the U.S. until things got, the U.S. helped them build up their industry and stuff like that.
Well, the U.S. also said, hey, you can't have any military, so we're going to...
Right.
We've got to provide the military if we're going to kick you guys out having military.
Right.
So got to make sure you guys aren't going to get invaded.
Right. So there was that. And they also had censorship on hey, let's not talk about this bomb. Okay, let's just forget about the atomic bombs. You guys can talk about it. And this movie allowed that pretty much to be said, hey, here is this big evil monster coming and destroying us in the cities. And it has something to do with nuclear weapons.
So I think that's where the root of this comes from, why this one stood out from the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
From the other monsters. This was specifically something that was very culturally relevant, something that a lot of people still remember hearing firsthand, this event that happened.
Oh, yeah, it's only 9 years.
Yeah. So this is something that would have hit home and eventually became an icon for Japan itself, this concept of Godzilla.
Yeah.
As a national icon.
No, I'm not trying to say that I understand Japanese psychology or mythology, especially from that era. I'm not, but just standing back and taking a look and saying there's enough parallels here to say, yeah, I'd say that had something to do with it.
I think that's one of the reasons we see the change as well as it goes on, because you got first 2 had a very clear plan in it,
mm-hmm.
and then they did real good. Oh shoot, we should do another one next year. Let's do it right now. Use stock footage from the originals, copy paste it in, get this done as fast as possible.
Right.
And then ended up just doing a yearly release for all of them, and progressively got
worse.
dorkier, worse in many aspects.
So the theme on that first one, he is definitely a villain. Godzilla is destroying cities. They got to figure out how to get rid of him. They make him go away. And there's really no explanation in the second movie how he came back. But so what themes, and I'm just going to leave this out there. I'm not going to say anything at all, because we're learning how to look at entertainment, specifically science fiction and fantasy, through biblical eyes. How do we take something that is a story and look for something that may have eternal value, something that a message from the gospel, something to pull out and to apply and to talk about? So what would there be in these first 2 movies about a big monster that comes and just basically destroys your world? I'm putting you on the spot.
Crap happens.
Okay.
A lot of those people had no control over it. A lot of the people, you looking at individual people who would have been affected by this, don't have any sort of control of this situation. They don't have any sort of way to fight back.
No.
I mean, most of the people that just die there in the initial attack, I mean, they're just wiped out.
Right.
So, well, first of all, make sure you're right with God.
Yeah. Life is short.
Life is short.
It's a little bit hard to bring that message out when you're looking at a campy movie, black and white. Special effects are really, really bad. Something that you and your friend can do in your backyard. But still, the message remains is we don't know what's going to happen. You have a gamma ray burst tomorrow, and then all civilization that we know of, half the planet's wiped out. All life on half the planet's gone. So you don't know. In any disaster movie, this would apply to any disaster movie. The end's right around the corner. Somebody can it can be even far simpler. The car accident on your way back home, and boom, you're done. That's it. So
another thing is how you deal with stuff in that situation. What do you turn to? Where you mean
if you live?
If you're in the middle of this chaos that's going on around you,
yeah,
where do you turn to? Do you just curl up in a corner and die?
Those are good questions, and that's something that definitely brought out in any disaster movie, anything like that. Now, some of the later ones where they get campy and stuff like that, the answer is it's really not a theme.
No, let them fight.
So I'm going to throw a couple things up here, just looking at the movies themselves all through. So we're talking about quite a few that are here. These are movies, and you can see the years.
Good luck on getting that right.
I am. This is like skill. The years of all these that are here, and there's some that are highlighted because so we got Godzilla. These are the first two, and then King Kong versus Godzilla.
That was really popular. I actually remember that one.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know that they were going to have King Kong versus a big Frankenstein monster instead?
That explains a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Actually, because a lot of it was like electricity based.
Yeah,
and it always seemed really weird for King Kong to all of a sudden have this.
That's
like
a good
electrical powers
that's
and
a good point.
Grabbing you with electrical powers.
Okay.
Shock ya.
And then this one started the next era. This is the revival period because these next few until we get to I think it's Son of Godzilla, but this is Mothra then kind of turns Godzilla into he becomes more of a defender for them and a defender for Japan. He's no longer this big monster. He's like a wolf that has been kind of tamed and brought into the house that you don't know when he's going to turn on you, but at least he's doing some good things and he's keeping the other bad things at bay. And then when they finally bring in which one is it? It's the three-headed monster that comes in.
Ghidorah.
Thank you.
The second one that's red highlighted.
Yes. I'm missing it because it was red.
The whole three-headed monster thing.
Yeah, the three-headed monster thing, and that third head is in between, so you can't see it. But Gamora, the three-headed monster, that's where he really starts coming in and defending. Okay, so
now, real quick there, you can pull those back up. You can start to see a trend. So the first two are on their own. Godzilla's by himself, and then the rest of the time, Godzilla's with other monsters.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of versus this versus that going through, trying to play off other things. That's where it really becomes more of a monster versus monster thing.
Yeah.
Than monster versus human.
This is in the last bit. That's where they call it the champion era because it's just these guys battling. Just who's he going to fight next? It's almost like a WWE type of mashup to say, oh yeah, it is, except we've got the monsters in this corner.
Big rubber suits.
Yes, and they gang up
you
against
do that. You could have WWE, but in big rubber suits.
Yeah,
that would get a lot of views.
So 1969, All Monsters Attack, that was a big one that had come through, and they pull out all the stops for this. So they're just looking for ratings at this point, looking for getting not ratings, but ticket sales. So in the next era that we have, let me pull this guy off. The next era we have where Godzilla teams up with others and starts fighting, and he becomes the good guy. He's now defending. We've gone from the monster that destroys Japan to the monster that defends Japan. I believe, and I got to be careful in doing this because I'm not trying to, lean too heavily into Japanese mythos. Godzilla became the defender. He became what Japan is looking for, their identity still in the world. They've been defeated. The whole imperialism thing just didn't work out. It was a bad idea. Let's not go there before, but what are we going to do? And especially when Godzilla becomes this defender, not only of Japan, but you got these creatures from outer space that are coming
that's what it's consistent. There's always something from the outside coming in. First two films, the
Godzilla is the
can
monster.
defend against Godzilla, and then after that, Godzilla helps the humans defend against either monsters or alien monsters,
Right.
or some silliness.
Right.
Flying Godzilla.
So over the span of these movies, Godzilla shifted from a horror movie antagonist to an almost human-like kaiju hero. And the Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, was the first film that really showed him as the hero. After a while, the shows dealt with a tighter budget constraints and became goofier. The son of Godzilla, monsters all attack, introduced Godzilla's son, Manila, who was trying to make an effort to make the show more kids friendly because they were trying to reach that audience. They pumped out movie after movie. Production and story quality dropped. The movies made fewer and fewer yen until they released The Terror of Mega Godzilla 1975, which was so bad it deep six the franchise and ended the Shōwa era.
So I can very easily see this with some parallels to some series that are currently going out. It's kind of Marvel.
Marvels!
Constantly coming out. Every year, got to have a new Marvels.
Yeah.
Some new characters. Actually, multiple times a year. But in this case, they were just doing one time a year.
Yeah. What's worse about this one is they're really trying to push a new philosophy, not trying to sell to a new audience like what was happening with Godzilla, but trying to force a philosophy into the story. And every time you do that with a story, you kill the story because the story
takes center stage.
The story goes to the backstage.
Yep,
it becomes
backstage,
just the story is a prop. It doesn't really matter anymore. What you're doing is just trying to do the message.
Yeah. So the message becomes front stage and everything's about the message. And definitely if it's the same message you've heard in all the other,
especially if it's a bad message.
Yeah, all the other movies.
It's like, really, you gotta do this again, guys.
Again.
So how did all these last movies in the last two eras that we're looking at, how were themes of power and redemption and human condition, what kind of messages can be pulled out of that and to relate that to, say, something that is longer lasting?
Well, in all of them, we need a savior. In the last sections, we all need saviors in quite a few of them. In this case, it was Godzilla coming in, saving humanity from the outside. Again, an outside force coming in and saving us because we are unable to do it ourselves. Right.
And they did look a lot at how, again, the place of Japan through a lot would be through technology and how we can turn a monster into a friend. And look at Japanese relations to the U.S. during that time, too. A lot of it was technological based, and turning a former enemy is now a fairly staunch ally. So midway through the Shōwa era, Godzilla became the embodiment of a new spirit of Japanese nationalism, in which it helps defend the world from external threats, partly through innovation and science. And why does that message, here's a question I have. Why does that message still resonate with us even today in its generic form? Transformation of a monster into a defender of the helpless, from victims to victors. Where is that something that still works today, do you think?
I think in a lot of cases it still works today. These sort of messages are consistent in quite a few shows. I mean, you got so many anti-heroes out there.
Yeah.
That were once villains and maybe on the dark side, but then are redeemed in some way and become good. And I mean, you could look back even in just Christian theology and the writings. I mean, you got Paul, which would be that sort of anti-hero who was once evil to the extreme to the Christians, killing them, pursuing them, trying to find every single one of them he could, but then is redeemed and becomes...
That's actually not the definition of an anti-hero.
No, not anti-hero, but the redemption.
Redemption arc. So
Redemption
it
arc.
has a redemption arc there.
Not an anti-hero, but a redemption arc.
Right.
Into becoming one of the forefront of spreading the gospel.
Right. So victims to victors. Of course, Christians, this comes through God's redemptive work on the cross, but we still have a role to play, and we need a vision of a hero, like you said, people either like Paul, who was the bad guy, who did become the good guy there, and other roles for that. But that would be getting into the next era of the Godzilla series, the Heisei era. So if you like this material, please let us know and share it. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Show thumbnails. We have upcoming episodes that are the next era here. Are we? Yes, we have Godzilla, the Heisei era, 1984 to 1995. And then the following day, we're going to look at the Millennium era, 99 to 2004. This is going to be set in preparation for the upcoming movie Godzilla -1. We're taking a look at all of these and saying, are there any themes that we can pull out that would be great conversation pieces? So until next time, appreciate your company, and we'll see you then.